Hello, welcome, my real Portlanders. Just a quick announcement before we start this show. On June 9th, next Sunday, is going to be my next show with comedian Karina Lucas, City Councilor Eddie Morales, musician Joaquin Lopez, and Q Center Executive Director Cameron Witten. It's going to be an all-pride show. I hope you're there. And the morning before, on June 8th, my friend Jason and I are starting our first show on KBOO called Fearless Frequency. That starts at 3 a.m. in the morning on June 8th. So tune in if you're still up dancing for Pride. We've got music going for you. Here's the show, recorded Mother's Day, May 12th at the Jade Lounge. Unfortunately, the recording cut off early, so I'm going to throw in an extra song from Amanda Richards for you at the end. Please enjoy the show.
It's always been home, I've always been here, I've always got time for one more beer. So pick up a beer and pull up a chair and strike up the band. It's My Real Portland.
Hello and welcome to My Real Portland. Let's begin tonight's podcast, as we always do, by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the unceded territory of the Chinook people, including the Maloma and Clackamas people. Coming to you live from the Verdant Jade Lounge at Southeast 24th and Ankeny in my hometown, Portland, Oregon. This is my Real Portland, actually, highlighting real people and real stories from all around the area. I'm your host, Joseph Lyons, and I've got a great show lined up for you this evening, including musician Amanda Richards, storyteller Jasmine Pettet, community organizer Shannon, and comedian Belinda Carroll, who has another show to get to tonight. But before we bring her up to the stage, I'm going to tell you about our next show on June 9th. It's the All Pride show, where I am going to feature trans comic Karina Lucas. Yeah, right? She's phenomenal. Q Center Executive Director and activist Cameron Witten. Yay! Gresham City Councilor Eddie Morales. And singer-songwriter and my longtime friend Joaquin Lopez will be here. So I've got to tell you a little bit about how some of the guests on tonight's show came about. So when I started My Real Portland, I went to my really good friend, Charmian Kriegel, who I went to school with like 25 some odd years ago in Ashland. And she and I both went to school with Joaquin Lopez. And I said, Charmian, do you think Joaquin would do my show? And she said, yeah, I think Joaquin would do your show. And I asked him, and then he actually said, yes, I will do your show, which is an amazing thing. He is going to be back, by the way, on June 9th. He just has a brand new album out. It is extraordinary. He is one of the most exquisite performers that you'll ever see in Portland. So after I had him on the show, then I had one of our mutual friends, Adrienne Flagg, on the show to talk about bees, of all things. What a random thing. When she was on the show, she said, hey, Joe, you should have my friend Jana Losey Crenshaw on your show. Now, here's a fun side note. Jana Losey Crenshaw is married to Mike Crenshaw, who I happened to have also on my show last March. He suggested during an interview that the person he would most like to meet was Joanne Hardesty. Right? And so she was on my last show, and then at my last show, Shannon Olive comes up to me and says, Joe, I'm doing this really amazing project. I'd like to talk to you more about it. And it took me a couple of weeks, and I'm like, hey, why don't you come be on my show? So here we go. This whole long line of friends and people lined up to make this fantastic show called My Real Portland. So in addition to all of those fantastic people, then my other, one of my guests tonight, Amanda Richards, winds up doing a show with Charmian Kriegel after I had known her for, so many different years doing theater. And it's so fun to have like this really close family of people together. So Jasmine, I don't have a big story of how we got connected or Belinda, but I've been following both of you on social media for like months and months and months, if not years. You both are fantastic performers in both of your industries, and I'm so excited to have you both. So, talking about My Real Portland, tonight's Mother's Day, so I want to talk just a little bit about my mom. Hello, welcome. Welcome to My Real Portland. Hello, I've heard about you. Welcome. We'll be talking about you a little bit later on tonight, by the way. So, I figured tonight would be a fantastic night to honor my mom. So, my mom passed away 18 months ago. And so this is my second Mother's Day without my mom, and it is really wonderful to be able to host a show surrounded by lots of lovely people who are still coming through the door. She loved to play pranks. So when she passed away, she made sure it was in October on a Friday the 13th during the Trump administration. That was a joke. You can laugh. Okay, actually the Trump administration isn't a joke, is it? In fact, one of the last specific memories of Mom that I had with her was watching the election results in 2016. And I'm sure you all remember that day. Both Mom and I had been so over the election that we were just sure that Clinton was going to win, right? And neither of us had made plans for that night. We figured, well, we might as well get together and watch the election results together. And by the end of the night, it was a little scary. And hugging my mom and saying good night that night was like one of those last times that you're like, hey, wait a minute, this is an important moment to say goodbye. It was a couple of months later after that. But so that didn't compare anything, though, to the experience that we both had in 1992, which was my first election that I voted in. And I was in my college town. I was a freshman at Southern Oregon State, and I had just gone to a party with a whole bunch of other queer friends. We were all interested, of course, in the No on 9, the Measure 9 campaign that was essentially going to legislate away my rights to be wherever, right? Yeah, right? And but it was also this weird, crazy election with Bush, Clinton, and this guy, Ross Perot. And when I left the party in Ashland, we were all sure that 9 had failed, and that was great, but we had no idea what was happening with the presidential results. And this was before the 24-hour news cycle and before, and like public radio would cut off at midnight. And so there was like nothing at 3 a.m. when I woke up in a panic and a sweat. And so I had nothing else to do, and I called Mom, because Mom was still up here in Portland, and she had cable. And so I could ask her, Mom, what's going on? She's like, why are you calling me at 3 a.m.? And I'm like, Mom, there's no news. I have no idea what's going on. She's like, honey, Clinton won. Everything's going to be just fine now. So I was going to tell another little part of that story, but I'll skip that because I will edit this out. See, the really fun thing about this being a podcast, and I love to talk about this during the show, is that I get to cut all of this out. I can move all of these things around and make this seem absolutely seamless. So are you all ready for the next part of the show? Yeah. Woohoo! All right. So my first guest is the founder of the Portland Queer Comedy Festival, and she hosts also a brand new show that just started last night that we will talk about in just a little bit. I am so excited to bring to the stage one of Next's 8 comedians who aren't problematic. Please welcome comedian Belinda Carroll.
I totally forgot about that. Oh my God. I wore my Geek Girls dress today. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be cute. And now I just look like Snow White after the divorce. I'm just like, it's like panels of, anyway, I've had a very long week. So I grew up in Portland. I'm a Portland native. Do we have any natives? Yeah, that's the problem. So let's get into that. No, I grew up in Portland, and so I grew up in Portland when Portland was industrial, like we were Salem, you know what I mean? And I grew up evangelical Christian, and I have 3 Republican brothers. So basically, stand-up is my revenge. So being queer in an evangelical family was an interesting experience. And I love my family. They just make completely different decisions than me. Like, I've got 27 nieces and nephews. Because apparently my family went to the Sarah Palin School of Contraception. I'm like, it's not a clown car. You don't have to see me. People fit in there. You know what I mean? Oh my God, I'm dating right now. That's weird. So I got out of a really long-term relationship, and it was enough time that like dating changed while I was in that relationship. And you know what I'm talking about? Then I got out and I was like, what the hell? And apparently what I've learned is that 25-year-olds love me. Which sounds really fun until you're in a bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning going, who's a philosophy major? You're a philosophy major. Who wants to learn about the 90s? You want to learn about the 90s. I'm feeling very discombobulated today. I think it's because, so this is the whole thing. So my brothers have a bunch of fucking kids, and so they invite me to shit. And this is the thing, is that they kicked me out of the family when I was 14 when I came out. And you know, whatever, they've tried to make it up, and they got hip to the jam like 10 years ago, and now they're all like, come around, you know. And I'm like, hey. So they invite me to shit. So they invited me to a baby shower. Yeah, I know. And this is the thing. Like, I don't know how to prepare for a baby shower. I know how to prepare for a dungeon party. But I have no idea how to prepare for a baby shower. I'm just in a baby gap trying to decide between a monkey rattle or a pink elephant. Or if it's just skip to her future and buy her a bottle of Boone's Farm and a GED home study course. So I went with the elephant because in my family you should get one of those in the room. Right away. I just realized why I feel weird. It's because we're doing comedy in the daytime, and that always feels like I'm a stripper in the daytime. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, don't look too closely at me. You can see the crow's feet, you know. No, I'm fine. I'm 43. I feel like I'm rocking. It's fine. Because I see other 43-year-olds, and I'm like, no, I'm rocking. It's good. Yeah, that's the thing, too. So I was talking to this girl. So I went down to Bend and did a show and whatever, and this girl comes up to me after the show, and she talks to me, like, for, like, a couple of minutes, like, whatever. And she's super, like, femmy and wispy, you know. And I don't know what makes anybody listen to me for, like, 20 minutes and then decide that I like wispy people. But so she starts talking to me. She's really very nice, but we just have a few sentences, right? But then she texts me on Facebook, and she's like, hey, you did really well, blah, blah, blah. You're really good at comedy. You're really pretty, blah, blah, blah. And I'm 43, so I'm like, thank you. So I'm like chatting with her or whatever until she starts sending me pictures that she's painted of her and I together. Oh, no, this is a real thing that's happening right now. And I'm like, I don't know what to do about it. So she just was a very 20, but this is the thing. It's not, I don't think it's really stalkery. I think she's just really like 25 years old. Because I texted her and she's like, or she texted me and she's like, you know, I'm 26 on Monday. And I was like, oh, that's nice. And then she was like, oh, you have 4 shows this weekend. Are you excited? And I was like, no, I'm 40. You know what I mean? So I just think she's just very enthusiastic about the whole idea and just doesn't understand what dating somebody in their mid-40s is actually like, which is just a bunch of cynicism and bitterness and a lot of moisturizer. Like, it's just so much. I'm moisturizing right now as we speak. Like, I'm constantly, do you know what I mean? Like, I've got 4 kinds of moisturizer in my bag at all times. I'm like, and a chapstick just in case, just like whatever. Anyway, so I think that's it. How much time am I supposed to fucking do? Oh, no, you don't want to say that. That's not, I have somewhere else to be. Otherwise, I'd do this for like 45 minutes, but I got time. What do I want to end with? I'll tell you about this. So I get to travel a lot with comedy, and so I get to do these little tiny towns, you know? And so I love little towns, like little small towns where like there's like 7 people and they all know each other. And you know what I mean? And so I did this show it was like Wichita Falls, Texas, and then it was Lawton, Oklahoma, and then Texarkana. Like, it was like that tour. And so I'm getting ready, coming down and everything, and I get this message, and it's like, it says, it's an email, and it says, Lawton, Oklahoma. Does anybody know about Lawton, Oklahoma? No, nobody knows about Lawton, Oklahoma. So Lawton, Oklahoma is a very small town, but the main thing there is the military base. And so there's only one gay bar, and it is about as big as this bar right now. And so all the military people will sneak into, and this is like after Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Don't think that changed anything. So, but anyway, but people will sneak in to the bar to watch the comedy and stuff, and dance and stuff. So anyway, I get this email. It says Lawton, Oklahoma, and it says homosexuality sociology study. Like, yeah, I'm opening that. And so I opened it up, and there's this woman, and she says, hey, I'm in college, and I'm a sociology major, and I have to do a study on an alternative lifestyle, and I've decided to do a study on homosexuality, but I don't know any of the gays. But I Googled you, and you seem to be a prominent gay. So can I follow you around for 4 days and study your lifestyle? And I'm like, am I on Discovery Channel's Wild Kingdom? Tonight in the natural habitat, lesbians at the gay bar. If you look closely, the one in makeup and high heels is using her bright plumage and shots of liquor to encourage the masculine one, or the bull dyke, into the traditional mating dance of the North American lesbian, the electric slide. Unlike the rare and elusive counterpart, the gay male couple, the lesbians will now go into extreme hibernation, only to emerge during the next breakup or the next gay pride parade, whichever should come first. All right, I'm done. Thanks. I'm Belinda Carroll. You guys have been really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Belinda. So, I like to ask all of my comedians, how did you get started in comedy?
Well, I didn't get started in comedy until stand-up comedy until I was 32. But I've been a performer all my life, and I started drag when I was 15, 16, at the City Nightclub.
Okay, what year?
I'm not telling you that.
Oh, no.
No, I'm just kidding.
That was
I just
the
said
wrong order to ask those questions.
No.
in.
I just said it 43 like 40 times. It's fine.
Oh, that's
So,
right.
1992.
Okay, so
I started
would have
performing
been there.
at 1992.
What shows did you do?
The City Nightclub.
Yeah.
Okay.
How did you perform as?
Okay, so City Nightclub, for those that don't know, because no one here is a native, was the only underage gay and lesbian nightclub in the country at the time, and was only open from 1987 to about 1997. And so during that time, I performed at the City Nightclub, and so I used to do male drag as Johnny Belinda, and I was Miss Leather. I was Miss Leather in 1995. I was Miss Leather 9.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I am sure that I've seen you. That is so hysterical, the things that I learn about guests on my show.
And the crazy thing is, we were talking about Measure 9. I worked on the Measure 9 campaign.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is that a guy named Gregory Franklin, who was the manager of the City Nightclub back then, has digitized the footage. So now there's a bunch of cable access footage of me. And when I was 19 years old doing drag, a ton of it.
So you know the guy who's done that footage, because I've watched that footage online. It is like watching videos from my past that I had no idea that they actually existed.
Yeah. So they filmed at the City, which was really unusual for the 80s and the 90s. And so they had a cable access show, and it was called Outrageous. And actually, my new show, Outlandish, is a nod to Outrageous. And so the reason that's called that is because it's a nod to Outrageous. So Outrageous was outrage us. And so it was spelled out very specifically. And it was the 90s. And so there was no gay media. There was no gays in the media. Nobody was out. Katie Lang wasn't out. You know what I mean? No one was out. My mom was still no, she just really likes short hair. I'm okay. So Outrageous was a really in-your-face, very rebellious rebellious show that was kids doing drag and we would have a midnight show, and so it was a dance club, so we'd dance, and then at midnight everybody'd sit down on the floor, and we had a light-up dance floor. It was really cool in Studio 54. And so we had a big black stage, a high black stage, and we put on full-on show numbers. One of the reasons I'm such a good producer now is because I produced shows at the City. Because we would do 10-person numbers, and it would be a bunch of drag queens that just started doing drag 3 years ago, and they were amazing, just phenomenal. Who are now big drag. Bolivia Carmichael's being one of them. CeCe Slaughters. Yeah, she has Superstar Divas at CeCe Slaughters, and she's an amazing, talented, artistic performer, and she started with me.
You know, it's like I get goosebumps when I sit on the stage. I had Joanne Hardesty on the show and that was fantastic. But you're talking about things that I was actually doing as a kid, and I was in the audience. I was like watching the things on stage going, oh my gosh, these people are brave, they're brilliant, they're exciting, and that was you.
Well, that was a bunch of other people and me. But yeah, I mean, but the performances that we did then would be revolutionary, I think, now. You know, I mean, as far as like talking about just demonstrating gender and sexuality and things in a way. I can't wait for the footage to be released because Gregory's going to release the footage. And we all look like 90s clubs kids, which just cracks me up. Like, I am literally on MTV. There's a documentary. Oh, there's a documentary called The City Nightclub Unfiltered on like YouTube or whatever. It's just a Viacom. Every once in a while, Viacom takes it off. But anyway, you can see me at 19 and I'm butch and in a white silk shirt for some reason. But also, like, just the dog collars. I don't know what we were thinking with the amount of dog collars and, like, spiky hair. It was just so much. We kept Aquanet in business for many decades.
Well, during that same time, so in 1991, during the ramp up to Measure 9, KTU did a whole story.
How many of you know what Measure 9 is? Okay, so let me tell you what Measure 9 is just real quick. So Measure 9 was a measure that happened in 1992, and it started in 1991, and it was a measure by the Oregon Citizens Alliance, the OCA, which was a far right-wing organization that was in Oregon. And so when OCA happened, so the OCA put 3 bills before this that were bills that would take away rights in housing and employment and things like that for LGBTQ people. And it wasn't just that. It would define sexuality, and it would define homosexuality specifically as the same and on par with pedophilia and bestiality, and it was real bad. And so we had a very divisive campaign, and there was a lot of people that were gay bashed. It was an unprecedented amount of gay bashing. We were kids, like 17, 16.
And the Portland police were actually working to threaten us kids at the gay nightclubs because they said that we were doing all sorts of crazy, ridiculous things.
And and I'm a trigger warning, I'm going to use the F word, the God Loves Fags people would stand across the street from the city and protest with their signs because we had no internet back then. So they weren't online calling us names. They were in person. And so we had Lanny Swerdlow had a standing restraining order with the city of Portland that if those protesters crossed the street, they'd get arrested. And so they would come to the middle of the street and stand there while we're waiting in line. And we're all kids. We're all 14, 15, 16 years old. And they'd stand in the middle of the street and toe that line until Lanny'd come out and yell at them to cross the street.
Oh, man.
But,
it's really amazing. I was not expecting this to be the direction of our conversation. It was supposed to be fun.
How did you start comedy? Let me throw some shit at you. How did I start comedy? No. But that's the thing, man. And so but we have to remember that, because as we go into the era that Trump exists and the era that all of this shit is being stirred up and people are being emboldened to do this shit again, we have to remember the past to be able to create the future that we want.
And so then, in context, one of my questions is about the Portland Queer Comedy Festival. It's not just something fun and enjoyable that you get to do. It is a formal act of activism, I would assume, on your part to have that festival.
It's the actions of an angry lesbian. No, and it is. Like, I started the festival. So the festival, let me tell you about the festival. So the festival's in its 3rd year, and it's July 17th through the 21st this year.
My birthday! It launches on my birthday. I'm so excited.
Oh, does it? Are you going to Scott Thompson?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so this is the thing. So we started the festival first year. We didn't know if we were going to be popular or not because there's never been a queer comedy festival in the country, and so nobody knew if we were going to succeed or not. And so so I was lucky enough that I had worked with a lot of really amazing headliners that as soon as I contacted them, they were like, "Fuck yeah, I'm in," And so we had the first year, and we had like Guy Branum, Kate Willett, who's out of New York, and she's amazing. And so we had like all of these amazing people, Julie Goldman. Yeah. So like just amazing people. And so and then we brought 50 other comics that I'd worked with, and I chose the lineup the first year. I curated it, and so and we took over 5 venues over 4 days, and we did 50 comedy shows. And so that was the first year.
Not just 50 comics, 50 shows.
50 shows.
50
and then
shows.
And then what we do is we incorporate traditional stand-up shows with our formatted shows that we do. So we have comic strip where the comics are telling their jokes, and then every 2 minutes somebody rings a bell, and then they take off clothes until they're naked. And we have gateway show where comics perform sober, and then they go get super high, and then they come back. And then we have my show Smut, which is a stand-up and burlesque stand-up comedy showcase, where we have a stand-up show, and then we have a couple of burlesque performers as well. And so so we incorporate like all of these things, and it's sexuality positive, but it's also gender positive, body positive, and people positive. And that's the thing, is that for me, the way that I came at it was when I created the festival, was I was always told when I was coming up in comedy, like, queer comics don't sell out clubs. They can't headline because they don't sell out clubs. Because if you look at a club roster, there'll be maybe one gay headliner a year. And it's impossible. Like, it's really hard to be a club comic and be a gay comic and be like an openly gay comic.
Especially touring and
you can be Ellen and talk about
really
food
work
or
in
whatever,
Kansas and be gay,
but you can't talk about your life, you know. So that was my point, was to like bring all these queer voices together and also show that queer comedy doesn't mean like, oh, that's all we talk about or that's all we are. Where you can see that within queer comedy, there's such a diversity of voices. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So now we have third year. So coming into third year, festival's been really popular. We got written up in the New York Times. We got written up. I got written up in USA Today. So third year we have Scott Thompson from Kids in the Hall. And then he's doing a special night with Buddy Cole, which is his one-person show.
Okay, do you all know
so
who Scott Thompson and Buddy Cole is?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, good. Comedy nerds.
So I want you to just kind of take this in. I'm on a stool in a bar with drinks and a microphone. It is not. This is all connected to Buddy Cole. So
okay. Yes.
Yeah.
And so So
yes, I will be there to see him.
Oh, perfect. So we're doing a show with Buddy Cole, and then we're bringing in Nico Santos, who was Oliver on Crazy Rich Asians, and then he also is currently in NBC's Superstore as Mateo. He's actually a Portland native, so this will be really fun for him too.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so it's kind of a coming home thing for him too. And then we have 48 other comics. So we have Erin Foley, who's been on Conan, and she has a podcast called Sports Without Balls, who's amazing. Sandra Valls, who Showtime's Latin Divas of Comedy. And so like we bring just a ton of people in.
That's fantastic. And you don't just put it on just yourself anymore. You've got a crew of people. Yeah. And one of our former guests here, D. Martin Austin, has been working with you, yeah?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Dee's a very important part of the festival for sure. Is an associate producer now. And also Andy Barrett, who's my co-producer and owns the Funhouse, just to make sure that we include Andy. Andy gets buried a lot because I'm all like, me, and then he's like, and he's all quiet and like owns a bar. But so he also helps me, Andy Barrett, and then and D. Martin, she's like amazing, and then Jenna Vesper, who's my social media manager as well, and she's also an associate producer.
Fantastic. And so third year, we've had a couple of comedy festivals that were big that have just kind of gone by the wayside and they're not producing anymore. How long do you want to go? I mean, it sounds like this is a really fun project to keep doing every year. Yeah? Oh
yeah. Well, I mean, ideally, this is the thing. If you're listening, you have to sponsor the comedy festival because I don't make no money from it. So you need to like give me money so I can get better headliners and stuff.
There you go.
Because that's the thing is that so it depends on how many people support it essentially, and it depends on how much support we have. But I want it to continue. I feel like this is the beginning. Like we've got a couple like. On the down low, we have a couple of casting directors coming this year, which I'm very excited about. So I had a couple casting directors contact me, and they're going to be scouting at the festival. I have a couple of agencies coming to scout at the festival, and that's what I want. I want people to be discovered from the festival and proliferate gay entertainment.
And not only is Portland just such a hotbed for comics, and if you look anywhere out across the nation, so many have come from Portland. Speaking of that, by the way, do you have any plans of leaving town?
No, I mean, well, this is the thing is that people have. I did a April Fool's joke, and I said I was going to LA, and I got like a bunch of phone calls from people in LA that were like, "Oh my God, when are you gonna be in it?" And I don't really want to leave, so I feel like this is my home. I feel like Portland's cool. I feel like that there's a lot of expressions of art that we can do here. And so it's the same thing. It's me being able to like call out a living here without like, doing TV or being able to do TV here, one of the two. But
Right.
because stand up as a live act doesn't pay very much. So you have to find other avenues as well. Otherwise, you just end up working a day job and doing stand up, and that's almost impossible.
Speaking of other avenues, you're also an activist, just directly an activist.
Yeah.
And you are the organizer of the Portland Dyke March.
Yeah, I'm the co-organizer with Shaylee Howard
Fantastic.
of the Dyke March.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Do you know Shayla Howard?
I've been following her online. My God.
Oh, you should
what
have
a
her on.
social
She's
media
great.
presence.
She's so fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's really cool. So Shaylee Howard is also an activist in town, and so we've been running the Dyke March together for like 7 years.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
And that happened already?
No. Dyke March is Pride this year is June 15th, 16th, and 17th, and so the Dyke March is on June 16th at 6 o'clock, and we kick off at NATO and Pine downtown at the waterfront.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good deal. Okay, so let's do some plugs. We got to get you out of here because you're going to a show right now.
Yeah.
What's
downtown.
that show?
That show is Spec Script, which is tonight is New Girl, and it's written by Brittany Meyer, who's out of Chicago. And do you know Brittany Meyer? She's amazing. She's great. She's a queer comic. She's awesome. And so the idea behind Spec Script is somebody writes an entire spec script but has never seen the TV show. So New Girl. So it's New Girl. So in fact, I've only seen one episode of New Girl, so we'll see how this goes. But and then I have a show, Smut, that's on second Fridays of the month, and then second Saturdays of the month at Kickstand Comedy Space. I have a new show that's called Outlandish, and that is a comedy talk show, variety show, where I'm bringing in activists and musicians and comedians, and then they're doing their thing, and then I'm doing an interview with them. And we had the first one last night, and it was amazing. It was so good, just like the way that the format came together and like our guests and everything. So we're doing like a huge Pride one on June 8th, and that one's with Cameron Whitten from the Q Center.
Fantastic. He gets around.
Oh yeah, but Cameron Whitten.
He does all the podcasts. He does all the shows.
Oh no, he does. And then my musical guest is Annie Vernetti, who's an amazing improviser. She opened for Michelle Branch for a number of years.
Oh my
gosh! She's fun.
Oh, that's hysterical.
But she's also an improvising musician, so we're going to be doing some musical improv and stuff. And then my comedian is it's D. Martin Austin from the festival. And then and so we get together and we have a karaoke challenge next month, which we're picking one person from the audience to challenge the cast on a karaoke song. So that'll be fun. So you should come down. It's 9 o'clock, second Saturdays at Kickstand Comedy.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, Belinda. Oh, hey, we've got more.
Yay. You can follow me on Instagram at Belinda Comedy.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sound means it's time for the My Real Portland questionnaire. Are you ready?
Oh, I guess so.
Okay. So this is based on the famous Proust and Lipton questionnaires. Belinda, what's your favorite smell in Portland?
Oh. Actually, my favorite smell doesn't exist anymore. My favorite smell used to be the Widmer Brewing Company when it was downtown.
Right?
Yeah. The Rose Gardens at Ladd. Like the
there
Ladd
you go.
edition specifically.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What's your favorite sound in Portland?
I don't know. Laughter at Funhouse.
There you go. I was going to say laughter. What's your favorite bridge in Portland?
The Trillium Crossing is actually really pretty cool. Just the view on it. And then also the Hawthorne Bridge. Because I used to cross the Hawthorne when I was a kid.
Hawthorne's beautiful. Yeah. Okay. So what famous Portlandian would you most like to meet?
Oh, you know who I would like to meet is Dr. Maria Cui, who was a doctor, who was a doctor in 1912 through 1916 in Portland, but she lived in Eastern Oregon because she was the first female physician accepted into medical school in California, in San Francisco, by talking her way in. And they'd never let a woman into medical school, and she talked her way into medical school. And then when she graduated, she moved to Oregon, and she lived in Southern Oregon as an open lesbian in like 1908. And she had a partner, and the first thing she was in the news for was because her partner, her girlfriend, did not get paid for a job, and she went down to the place with a fucking bullwhip, and she was like, "You will pay her," and so she got paid, and then they moved to Portland, and then she was one of the only doctors that treated gay people and homeless people and pregnant unwed mothers and like people like that back then, which was amazing. So Dr. Maria Cui, you should look her up. There's a whole book about it. She's great.
You know, I invite comedians on the show, and then they talk about all this serious stuff. I mean, it's holy crap. Shannon's gonna be really funny. I learned so much on this show. And what's really great is I get to listen back to it and then listen back to it over and over and over. And this story I'm going to be more and more familiar with. Okay, so where is your most likely weekend breakfast? 3 a.m. at the Hot Cake House, 6 a.m. at Stumptown Coffee, 10 a.m. for brunch right here at the Slide Inn, or somewhere else for a Bloody Mary?
I don't like lines and I don't do brunch, so I'd have to stay here at 10 o'clock.
There you go. Never a line, right, Eugene? I'll cut that out.
You need to make that into like an ad campaign. Slide in, never a line.
If you could rename any Portland street, which street and for who would you name it?
If I have to rename any Portland street?
Mm-hmm.
I would have had an answer to this like 3 months ago. They renamed, no, I'm going to take beef to this. I will rename it. So they renamed Stark Street Harvey Milk Street.
Right.
Okay. Harvey Milk was one of the first people elected to office as an openly gay person and was San Francisco, blah, blah, blah. I'll get into Harvey Milk later. But anyway, so San Francisco, whatever. He got shot in assassination by Ken White, who was a crazy person. Killed him, blah, 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 yada, yada. I have a problem with that because I feel like it should be a Portlander. Yeah. But the problem, right? But the problem is we have a thing in our city charter that says that person that we nominate cannot be alive. They have to be dead, and they have to be dead for a certain amount of years. Mm-hmm. So I felt like it should have been one of two people. Either Kathleen Sadat, who you don't know about, but was a huge voice in Measure 9 and like pretty much saved the fucking state. And then also Darcel. And so I felt like it should be Darcel Street or it should be Kathleen Sadat Street.
I mean, why not rename Northwest Davis, Northwest Darcel Boulevard, right?
No, for sure. Oh, that's a great idea.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
But she has to be dead for 3 years. I think this is why. I think
the citizens, can just start calling it whatever we want.
No, I think it's because they want to make sure that like whatever like skeletons in the closet, like like a surface before they name a street like R. Kelly Street, and they're like, whoops,
Michael Jackson Way.
Yeah.
Bill Cosby Street.
Too soon. That one's
no. I'm like, what skeletons are we gonna find out about Darcel at this point? Like, could you imagine? No, I think
there's
we should.
No skeleton.
I think we should.
No,
do
she
it
has lived
now.
out.
I think we should do it immediately.
Yeah, I think so too.
Any
skeleton she has, she's already shown to everybody.
That's right.
So
exactly, and they're beautiful too.
Okay.
Okay. So if you this last question, if you were a tree. Which Portland park would you like to be planted in? Forest Park. Right?
Yes.
With all your forest friends.
Yes. Well, I do have a woodpecker tree there. So I've been hiking for like 4 years. And so I got super into hiking, and so I hike very, very frequently. And so Forest Park is one of my parks. And so there's a woodpecker tree that's on the Wildwood Trail, which is closed right now, which makes me sad because there's a woodpecker family that I've been following for 4 years, and I've watched them have a baby every year. And so they went from 3 little woodpeckers to 4 woodpeckers to 5 woodpeckers, and there's 6 woodpeckers in there.
Oh my gosh.
It's super cute. But now it's closed, so I can't visit my woodpeckers.
Because of the new bridge that they're going to be building, right?
Yeah, because they're building the bridge.
So brand new awesome things that are going to be coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
But hopefully they don't scare away my woodpeckers.
Right. Okay, well, let's get her off to her next show at Spec Strip. Ladies and gentlemen, Belinda Carroll. So when I started My Real Portland, I made a commitment to bring comedians, musicians, and storytellers to the stage. And somehow social media connected me to my next storyteller. And I made it out to one of her recent shows called Telltale a few weeks ago. And it was such a wonderful, beautiful night out filled with vulnerability and taking risks on stage. And before you go, actually, really quick, before I bring you up, Belinda, come back. Jasmine, why don't you come on up here? We're going to do a quick group photo.
Of me?
Yeah,
Okay.
of all of us together.
Okay.
And then we will get on with the rest of your introductions. So, Shannon, come on up. And Amanda, please. And who wants to take a photo of us? Okay, thank you for that moment. Okay. All right, settle down, everyone. So it was a great night out, by the way, of people being vulnerable and taking risks on the stage. It was Telltale. And please welcome to the stage the host of Telltale, Jasmine Pettet.
Thank you. All right. Thanks so much for bringing me out tonight. I have a couple pieces I'm going to read. I'm going to do trigger warning for self-harm. Which makes it sound like more of a bummer than it actually is. You'll see. On a weeknight some years ago, I go to meet my husband, Metro, at the bar after his shift ends. He'd ridden his bike to work, but it was raining by then, so I agreed to come back and pick him up. So we're hanging out with the kids that just finished the first shift, loitering and just kind of talking shit. Metro, after hearing that I'm coming to give him a ride, decides to eat the marijuana banana bread that Jason gave him earlier that evening. Jason told him that it was a super low dose, that he could totally eat the whole thing. But Metro was a responsible drug user. So he waits until he's almost off shift, and he eats just a quarter of it, he thinks. When fact-checking this story later, he actually couldn't remember, but let's just run with it. He eats a quarter. So I tell him that I'm going to give him a ride, and he's like, cool, and eats a quarter of it. I go to there to meet him. We're all good. So we sit around for a while, and nothing's happening, so he takes another quarter. So now he's had half. This is when I get text from this guy, Daniel, who was dating my cousin at the time. They've had a fight. She's threatened to hurt herself and is refusing to answer his phone calls and says she only wants to talk to me. And I am conflicted. My cousin and I have a complicated relationship. She moved to Portland after us being close as kids and then not talking at all for over 15 years. And our reunion has been fraught. But I'm not a monster, so obviously I go. So Metro has taken half the weed banana bread, but he isn't feeling anything yet. 2.5 hours have passed. Maybe Jason wasn't a liar about the dose for once. Metro feels fine to bike home, so I leave and tell him I'm going to call him later. I get to my cousin's apartment, and it's pretty rough. She cut into both of her wrists really deeply. She's moving fast around the apartment, and there's a lot of blood. It's like she stood and just kind of waved her wrists in the air like a helicopter, and she's laughing in this really high-pitched and pressured way. And there's a meth pipe and tiny Ziploc bags all over the coffee table among the blood splatter, and I get my first aid kit from my car, because I'm the type of person who has a first aid kit in my car, and text Metro to say I am assuredly not coming back to get him anytime soon. So Metro decides to bike home. It isn't raining anymore. The banana bread is a total bust, no big deal. He stops at a corner store to buy a bottle of beer, pauses, and decides to take the other half, because it tastes good, and why not? Nothing's happening anyway. In my cousin's apartment, she won't let me look at her arms. So I start cleaning the kitchen, because I figure if nothing else, when she's in a different headspace later, she probably doesn't need to see this blood confetti situation. I'm wiping down the cupboards and the kitchen floor and the countertops while she just speaks nonstop. Metro, a mile past the corner store and almost home, and just hears this sudden sound effect in his head. The banana bread is hit like a brick 3 hours later. His whole world is now just tunnel vision. He is suddenly very, very high. And eventually she does let me look at her wrists, and it is clear that she needs stitches. I wrap her arms gently in gauze while she talks intensely, the only way she is capable of talking currently, about strange shared childhood trauma and memories. And after what feels like ages, I get her into the car and we drive to the hospital. Metro somehow makes it home through his tunnel vision and the movie sound effects that are pounding in his head, the world's longest final mile bike ride. Time is stretching. He's desperately glad to be alive and home, which is the exact moment that he remembers that he has actually loaned out his house key. At the hospital, the waiting room is totally packed. Everyone in Portland is sick or broken or breaking, and hospital waiting rooms are achingly depressing already. And I've done this many times for work, but it's different this time. Part of my complicated relationship with my cousin is based on her penchant for lying. And lately, she has been talking about how much pain she's in and has had several possible really scary diagnoses that are pretty life-changing, but I don't know what to believe. I don't really trust her, so maybe I am the monster. So Metro has no house keys. And the thing you need to know about Metro is that when he uses marijuana, he is one of those people that gets super paranoid, just like you see in the movies. He is petrified that people will know he's high. Any people, including me, or the person who gave him the banana bread, or the person next to him that he is sharing the joint with. So his panic and paranoia are just rising. He starts out checking each window, hoping that we forgot to latch one that morning, but then he thinks, oh shit, people are gonna see me, think I'm a burglar. I don't know my neighbors, and so he stops. Weed is still illegal at this point, and he is incapable of talking to the police in his current state, so he just leans real hard into the panic, because that'll be helpful. The situation in the waiting room is escalating really quickly. She is writhing in her chair, saying that her nerves are on fire. While she's writhing, she is punching the furniture around her and screaming at me that I don't really love her, and that I'm only there because I feel obligated, which fucking sucks because, yeah, that's totally what's happening. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to lie to her or be honest, because both options make me seem like a real dick. Did I mention that I might actually be the bad guy in this story? Everybody is staring at us, except the people that work at the hospital, who are continuing to completely ignore us. At this point, Metro has become thirsty. Like desperate, cotton-mouthed, I'm gonna die in the desert thirsty. He is terrified that someone will notice how high he is, although there are no people around. He is too high to remember that our house has 2 water spigots that are really easily accessible. And this is when he starts hearing the smoke alarm. At the hospital, I am weakly attempting to console her, but it's really useless. She keeps screaming and writhing and punching the empty chair beside her. Metro is very focused on the smoke alarm. He is walking up and down the center of the street in front of her house in slow motion, trying to figure out which house it's coming from. And he is still dying of thirst, pacing because he is very concerned, but isn't having any luck figuring out which house it's coming from. Because he is hallucinating his emergency. There is no smoke alarm happening at all. I am in the actual emergency. We finally get called back and we talk to a doctor and they stitch up both wrists. And they ask if she was trying to kill herself and she says no, obviously. And the doctor basically says, well, too bad. They're gonna put her on a 72-hour psych hold anyways. And the look she gave me when they say she can't come home with me is so full of anger and betrayal and also heartbreaking resignation. And I say I'll call her and then I just leave. Because that's the only option left. That's just what you do. And I go into the bathroom at the hospital because I finally notice that there's blood on my hands, literally, and wash my face, and I look in the mirror like a really dramatic movie moment. And the whole time I'm in the hospital, I'm not getting any reception on my phone. So when I get outside, I suddenly get all the messages Metro has been leaving me. Messages explaining that he does not have a house key, that he is so thirsty, that there's a smoke alarm somewhere, and definitely I can't know that he's high. I sit in the car and email work to say I'm not coming in tomorrow. At the peak of Metro thinking he's so high he might die, our friend West calls him apropos of nothing and is just like, hey, what's up? And he is like, don't let her know I'm high, don't let her know I'm high, don't let her know I'm high. And trying to sound nonchalant, says, oh, nothing, I'm just stuck outside the house and I'm so thirsty. And she says, you know I have an extra key to your house, right? I could just come over like right now. And Metro is fucking saved. He could weep with relief. She then adds that she's going to stop by Subway on the way over and will bring him a sandwich, which we all know is basically the cure for being too high. She sits on the front step to wait for her, and suddenly in his panicked thirst, he remembers the bottle of beer that he has had in his bag the entire time. I drive home feeling strangely. It's very late. I don't really know what the fuck this is, like this part of my life. In a few years, all this shit will be old news. My cousin will have vanished suddenly to California. Daniel will have fallen in love with this blonde girl and moved to New York. Banana Bread Jason will have quit working at the bar. But in this moment, it just like felt really awful. So Kim West shows up with Subway. Metro consumes it in the least seconds one could possibly take to eat 12 inches of food, and immediately passes out on the couch. I get home, and West is watching TV alone in my dark living room. I don't know that she's going to be there. So I don't know if there's really a moral to this story except for this. The dose of edibles is always unpredictable, which is why reasonable legal weed is way better. Everyone should carry a water bottle with them all the time. Kim West can save the day with a sandwich, and sometimes people really do wash their face in the sink and stare into the mirror like they're in a movie. Thank you. Not a monster at all. Totally a hero. And then this is a really short piece. I did a reading for a thing called One Page downtown at Literary Arts. And so I was trying to write something that was only 1 page long, which is challenging. So this is it. It will not be okay. You're going to die anyway. So what are you going to do with your time? For anyone who knows me, I am a soft and hopeful thing with a sadness clinging closely. I'm obsessed with being temporary, the passage of time, the seasons switching, the irises yawning themselves above the ground too early, the way my face changes in the mirror when you're not paying attention. I'm a brief flash of light in the timeline that stretches from one end of always to the other. But there's this one night where I sit at a bar with my closest friend and we order the same thing, and I say I love you out loud in a way we normally reserve for late night hazy texts, and he says it too. It's the bar across the street from the spot I used to hang out at all the time when I was loved and loved different people. But I don't really feel sad about it anymore, at least not much. All that time passing. And then we go to our holiday party together for the job that we both love, and they left the Christmas lights up for us, even though it's mid-January by now. And this job, it kind of empties me out and fills me back up, not necessarily in that order. And sometimes it really just breaks my heart. But that night at the party, I talked to a lot of people instead of hiding and glaring in the corner, because I am arguably a better version of myself than I used to be. And afterwards we left, we got into cold cars, and we just drove through the industrial district, and it's all metal and hard angles and empty parking lots. But we see the spot where Metro's new work is gonna open soon, and he leaves the car running and just stands in front of it, and he marvels at the sign that's lit up against the blackness for the first time, and there's this feeling of like, it's all happening. Like after years of like bullshit jobs fading a little further in the distance all the time. I don't know. We just kind of were like blooming at the same time, and then I feel stupid for thinking it. And then he doesn't say anything, but we get back in the car, and he drives us up to the West Hills behind the city, and we park the car, and it's late, and it won't be okay, but is being okay really the point? And we stand on the sidewalk holding hands, and we look down at the lights, and I'm thinking it, but he actually says it, like, we still live here. Which doesn't sound like much, but tell that to like every sad kid I used to be, or every flat and fading like mopey teenager, and every super poor broke 20-something, all the versions of us that were hopeful but also so skeptical that they could never even imagine like still being alive and living in a city and not being alone and having the sweetest people that love us and jobs that we love. We still live here. Like in this cracking body and this flawed brain, this gray city, we still live here. But come on, pal. They're gonna love you so much, and it still won't be okay. You're gonna get old, and your knees are gonna hate the stairs, and you'll be gone anyway. So what will you do with your time? You're gonna be gone. All that electricity zipping around your brain is gonna be gone. Your family photos will stop mattering eventually. It won't be okay, you won't be. Like, you're gonna die. But right now, you still live here, and they love you so much. and your brain is trying so hard, and the rose bushes growing out of my dead dog lawn are coming up too soon, so hopeful and enthusiastic. And it won't be okay, you're gonna die anyway. But it doesn't matter, because you're just a brief flash of light in all the darkness. You're a fleeting thing. You're a flash of light from one end of always to the other. And it won't be okay, you're gonna die anyway. They're gonna love you so much, so what are you gonna do with your time?
Jasmine Pettet, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my gosh. So, have you been a writer your whole life? I mean, that's a silly question. We all have been writers our whole lives. Has that been your focus?
No. I would say that I've been a secret writer my whole life. And I briefly did a lot of open mics and stuff back home when I was like 15-ish.
Back home. Where's back home?
Warsaw, Indiana.
Okay.
And yeah, when I was like 15 or so, I did a lot of open mics for like a single year. And then I moved to Portland, and then I didn't do anything on stage until 2016. Yes.
Until 2016. Okay. So, and what happened in 2016?
There was the Wild Fang, the feminist store downtown. They had a free speech storytelling night that was happening for a while. And somebody I knew did it, and I went and saw her, and everybody was like, you should do it, you should do it. And even though I hadn't done anything on stage for like 2 million years, I was like, okay, yeah, I'll just sign up for it. You know, like it sounded like a good idea in the moment. And then I did it, and I was like, oh, shit, I think I might really miss this.
Yeah.
Maybe I want this feeling back. And then I looked around town a lot and was trying to find a storytelling thing that felt like a good fit for me, and I couldn't find anything that was, because there are storytelling things, but a lot of them are like The Moth and stuff, which my show is frequently compared to. But The Moth is competitive. So the whole idea is that you're supposed to be good at it. And I didn't want that to be a requirement for people.
Sure.
So when I couldn't find a show that felt like a good fit for me, I made one.
That's awesome. Okay, so and this is Telltale.
Yes.
And it's been going on now for 2 years?
Yeah, June will be the last show of the second season.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we're going to kick off the third one in July.
And now you're closing off then your second season. I love calling it second season. This is,
It makes
by
me
the
feel
way,
very fancy. It was my husband's
third
idea.
show of my second season, right? So that show is a fundraiser. Tell me about that.
Correct. So Planned Parenthood of Clackamas County reached out to me to do a fundraiser. I guess they had been doing a trivia night for the last couple years, and they just wanted to mix it up and do something a little different. So they reached out to me, and we're collaborating to make Planned Parenthood a bunch of money. And I feel like that is always a good idea, but doing it in Clackamas County is maybe even extra good idea.
Absolutely. Well, and so the venue that you perform at is in Milwaukee.
Yeah, Chapel Theater.
Yeah.
We've been there the whole time. It is lovely. They also do a bunch of other kinds of shows. They do comedy stuff. They're a theater first and foremost, so they do plays and like dance shows and that kind of thing. But I knew the folks that owned it, and so I was able to get in on kind of the ground floor and start early and get grandfathered in at an excellent rental price.
Well, and your show was, I mean, there was, I don't know how many, it was really full with people and a ton of performers and a great diversity of people. Are you active in casting the show? How does it work for people to come to the show?
You might have heard Amy laughing in the background. Yes, I am active in casting the show. That is the thing I do. That is, yeah, I would say that the show is like 90-ish% me.
So do you specifically choose not to have certain people on the show?
Rarely, but I am more enthusiastic about some people coming back than others.
Interesting. So who are the people that you want to have come back? Is there a theme that they have? Or?
Not necessarily. I just want people that maybe don't necessarily have the most access to a microphone to be able to come up, which like to the non-competitive part, like the idea of not being expected to be awesome at it. That means it's opened up to people who have potentially never spoken into a microphone before.
Right. This is weird. I didn't do it before I started doing this show.
Yeah.
Right?
It's scary.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, and they're watching you, and there's a lot of pressure. And this one's being recorded, so I can't screw up. yeah, it's like a powerful thing. And I don't know, I think I just like bring back people that make me feel a lot of things, which is kind of what the show is all about.
Right.
And sometimes people come and I think they just don't necessarily get it. And it's only one person out of every, couple of shows where I'm like, I think you just didn't really read the description at all, which is fine. But they just might not be invited back.
Sure. So, what other storytelling events do you do around town? I mean, you're obviously doing a ton of different events. Yeah.
Well, I would say up until like last month, none.
Really?
Just mine. And it's really only super recently that I've started getting on other people's shows. It kind of happened all of a sudden.
You would have been getting around and doing all of those different
No.
shows. I even know people who aren't storytellers who have been on all those other shows doing storytelling.
Well, since this is being recorded and a whole bunch of people are going to listen to this, I would very much like people to invite me to come do their shows. To everyone listening,
Absolutely.
all these showrunners.
Yeah, I mean, it's just always surprising when I find out that hasn't happened. So let's get you booked on tons of different shows.
Yeah, I would say that Todd from Seven Deadly Sins was the first one that invited me to do their show, and he is just a lovely person. And there's the Pants on Fire show, which is also the first time I've ever told a story without having paper in my hands, which is really scary.
Oh yeah.
It's a whole other thing.
I mean, I have these.
Yeah, you have a
this is
script.
my blue safety blanket, like Linus.
Mm-hmm.
So you were awarded back in 2016, if I can remember this correctly, one of 5 city awards for community service around town. Do you remember which award I'm talking about?
Out of all the
Stafford
many
Award?
times I've been recognized.
Is it the Stafford Award?
Skidmore.
Skidmore, okay.
It's a Skidmore Award. It's
I knew it was
something
probably
like outstanding work from outstanding young people or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mostly given to like social work-ish humans under 35 that make under a certain amount of money.
Okay, so that definitely defines who you are.
A little bit.
What kind of social service work are you doing?
I am an alcohol and drug counselor for homeless youth.
Fantastic. And was that with Outside In?
Yes.
So a little story back in 1992, just to connect this back with the story with Belinda. I was going to a gay and lesbian youth outreach group coordinated through Outside In.
We've been around for 50 years.
It's such a fantastic organization, and how wonderful that you get. So a drug and alcohol counselor working with homeless youth. And how long have you been doing that?
13 and a half years.
Good Lord. How do you take care of yourself?
Oh, in lots of ways. I am magically skilled at compartmentalizing things. So when I leave work, by the time I'm like passing the river into other parts of town, I don't care anymore. In a really, really beautiful way. And I will totally care again by the time I go back to work again.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that I don't care while I'm there, and it doesn't mean that I'm not present, but oh man, it is awesome to be able to just like unplug my stuff and to not think about it, not perseverate on it, not care about it, and just be like, I'm out. And then I'll go back and I'll like care significantly later on. I also spend a lot of time with my dog, and I cook a lot of things, and I like to make bread, and I like to listen to records and lay on my floor and not talk to anybody for like lots of hours at a time.
Is storytelling part of a way of taking care of that part of yourself too?
Yeah, apparently, which is super confusing because I am not the most social person, and then at work I have to like socialize constantly. Like that's the whole thing. I'm like talking to humans nonstop. And then when I'm not at work, traditionally, I really like to not talk to like anyone. But apparently what we also know about trauma is that like community is the only thing that actually heals it and makes it better. And so I was trying to figure out something post-election to make me feel less pissy about all the things all the time. And so I wanted to find something that like helped create more community, but that also made me not actually have to like talk to people a whole lot, which is perfect because I go up there and I'm on the stage for several hours and I say hi to lots of really cool people who come out, and then I go home and then I don't talk to anybody for the rest of the weekend.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
It's an odd thing, right? But to have that opportunity to get up in front of an audience for just a couple of hours, like this moment right now, and then not do it for 30 days is really cool.
So good.
Yeah. Okay, so when is your next Telltale that you're doing as a fundraiser for Planned Parenthood? Clackamas County?
That will be on June 20th. So traditionally, my show is pretty affordable. We also always do sliding scale because I don't want money to ever be a barrier to people accessing art. In the third season, tickets at the door are going to be $8. The Planned Parenthood one specifically is going to be $15, so that they make a bunch of dollars. But we do the show monthly after that. And to just like really mess up the whole not talking to anybody between the shows thing, I did have this idea that I was like, oh man, like all these cool people come and then they always want to like talk to me, which, because I'm so popular. And I was like, what if but I never actually get to connect with any of those folks. They just come and like say hey afterwards for like 2 seconds. So I made like a Telltale community night, which is going to be on May 23rd at Ladd's Tap House. And nothing is happening other than I'm going to go there and I'm going to hang out there, and maybe people will come also and talk to me. But I made limited edition buttons that you can only have if you come to that.
Limited buttons?
I know, 1-inch buttons. Everybody wants one.
Exactly. I will be there for a button.
See? It's efficient.
I love that. It's like hanging out a sign saying free beer, only better. Okay, so how can people stay in touch with you on social media?
I am quite active on all of the things. So Instagram and Facebook is Telltale PDX, and then we also have a website that's telltalepdx.com.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay. Now that sound means it's time for the second My Real Portland questionnaire. Jasmine, are you ready for the My Real Portland questionnaire?
No.
We'll wait.
Okay.
Sweet. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I needed that moment too.
Sometimes you just need a belly breath for one moment.
What's that?
Sometimes you just need to take one deep belly breath.
Right?
Back to the self-care idea.
And know that this is temporary, and
you're going to be dead later, and this won't matter.
That's exactly right. What's your favorite smell in Portland?
I'm kind of annoyed that Belinda already said it, kind of, but just anytime you pass a brewery while they're brewing and there's like the hot cereal smell, so it's not brewery specific, but like there's a hot cereal smell that I really enjoy. There's a brief window where it smells delicious and does not smell rancid yet.
How long have you lived in Portland?
18 years.
Okay, so you remember Henry Weinhardt's? The
Yes.
smell downtown, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
God, I hated that. I don't.
There's a brief
I
window.
Do not
It's
know
not
how-
all of brewing. There's just a
What?
short hot cereal smell that is comforting. I'm seeing nods.
Okay.
I'm right.
I'll take your word for it. I just inundated with that smell for my entire youth, and I just can't do it anymore. That doesn't change my love for beer. Okay. What's your favorite sound in Portland?
Trains.
I love that. What's your favorite bridge in Portland?
The St. John's one is the most attractive, but also I feel like going over any bridge is the closest I get to praying, because I grew up in a really small town and there weren't any bridges because, the Midwest is kind of landlocked.
Yeah, right.
And so every time I pass a bridge, I look away from my phone and I take a moment to go, oh, snap, this is happening. I still live in a city. This is so cool. So it doesn't really matter what bridge. But St. John's is the prettiest, like, objectively.
I love that.
Thank you.
What famous Portlandian would you most like to meet?
I would like to go back in time and meet Elliott Smith.
Where is your most likely weekend breakfast? 3 a.m. at the Hot Cake House, 6 a.m. at Stumptown Coffee, or 10 a.m. for brunch at the Slide-In?
11 p.m. at Darcy's on Lombard in North Portland.
I've never heard of Darcy's.
I love Darcy's. There's absolutely no line, and it's cheap, and the service is excellent.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to check that out after I check out here at the Slide-In. All right, if you could rename any Portland street, which street and for whom would you name it?
Kathy Oliver was the director of Outside In for like 30 years, and she just retired last summer.
Oh,
So
really?
I'll, once she's dead for 3 years eventually, apparently, according to Belinda, maybe we could have
Start the ticker.
a street named after her.
That's fantastic.
Mhm.
30 years?
Something like that. 30, like a long time. Like, yeah.
Wow. I mean, I before I did this, I was in nonprofit for a number of years, and so I worked with a guy, Ron Huggy, who ran that nonprofit for 20 years, and I was just amazed that this guy had done that for 20 years. 30 years. That's remarkable.
I mean, I got 13 and a half. I'm doing all right.
Well, yeah.
I'm working on it.
If you were a tree, which Portland area park would you like to be planted in?
Pier Park
Where's Pier Park?
up in St. John's, like North Portland.
Love it.
Yeah. It's always like 20 degrees cooler in there. So like no matter how hot it is outside, the tree cover is so dense. You can go inside and there's all these like little cottage looking things that I think are just like maintenance buildings, but they look really cool and like fairy tale-ish. And there's like 2 million dogs if you want to go see dogs.
Are those the old Portland Park, like, recreation buildings?
I don't
I've
know.
heard, like, weird stories. Okay, I'm going to have to find that
I
out.
like to imagine what they
a
are.
Weird
They
little
might be
Portland
creepy.
trivia thing that I've just found out that I'm going to have to look into. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Jasmine Pettet.
Thank you.
Hello. So, my next guest was at the last My Real Portland with City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty. And during the show, Joanne commented and actually praised my next guest's community organizing work, doing door-to-door campaigning with Opal, which is organizing people, activating leaders, and environmental justice group. She organized the bus riders campaign. I think something like 2,000 people that you reached out to on that. And today is the head of Women First, working to help women in recovery and re-entry from incarceration. So please welcome to the stage a true Portland shero, Shannon Olive. Welcome to My Real Portland. So it was just a month ago, and you came up to me after the show, and it took me a couple of weeks to figure out, oh my gosh, I just need to have you on the show.
All right. Well,
So-
thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, there's something about your biography. The way it starts out says that in 2004 you hadn't voted before.
Yes, 2004, I never had voted. I didn't care that it mattered. I didn't know about voting. It just wasn't my cup of tea.
How did that? Where did you learn that? By the way, was that something that you had always believed, or was that something that you were influenced by other friends? The reason why I ask is because when I had Barbara Dudley on the show in March, she said that her entire generation didn't vote, and that it was something that wasn't just something about her. It was generational. Nobody her age was voting that she knew of.
It was just something that I just didn't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't a part of my life. Nobody in my family had voted. And so it's just something that since nobody voted, it's just something that I didn't know about. And at that time, I was going to school at Concord Career Institute, and I think I was at Safeway on MLK and getting some food, and I had ran into a guy named Johnny Gage who was married to my cousin. And he came to me and he was like, "Hey, Shannon, what you doing? What you got going on these days? What's going on with your life?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm in school. I'm trying to get my medical assistance degree." And and he was like, "Well, I'm a community organizer for this organization called Oregon Action. And, right now we're doing a voter registration campaign. And I think this would be a great opportunity we're trying to look for voter registration people, people to get out in the community and register people to vote. And I think this would be a great opportunity for you to get educated on, have you ever voted?" And I was like, "No, I don't care about voting." He was like, "Well, I think you need to come on and get involved with the organization." And so I was like, "Okay, well, I'm always the type of person that's up for new opportunities." So I was like, "Well, where do I need to go?" And he was like, "Well, come on down. We having a orientation on Saturday. Come on down to the Oregon Action Building." At that time, it was on MLK and between Deacon. It was actually Portland Boulevard and Deacon, between Portland Boulevard and Deacon. And so, so I was like, "Okay, I'm there." So I went on and was there and went through a leadership development training. It took about, I think probably maybe almost a couple months for me to go through it. And I'm very outgoing. I'm very a people's person. Right. And so when I went through the training, Joanne Hardesty, which was Joanne Bowman at that time, she was the associate's director. And so when I met her, Kate Titus, who was the executive director for Common Cause, she was the executive director for Oregon Action at that time. Johnny Gage, who is the organizer for Stay Clean, he was the community organizer at that time for Oregon Action. So when I went through it, I had met all these amazing people, and I was like, look at here, I'm ready to get on the ball.
That's cool. I mean, you had just you had just come from Concord career, is that what you did?
Yeah.
And you're getting education right here on the job from big leaders. Joanne had already been in the House of Representatives at that time for what, 6 years?
Mm-hmm.
So you're working around some pretty important,
yes,
well-connected people in the city.
Yes, and I wasn't even done with Concord yet.
Yeah.
That was in April. That was around April sometime of 2004. So I didn't finish school until I believe October of that year. So when I had got involved with them, I was just like, wow, this was something new for me. So with the fact that I had never voted, I didn't care about voting, but I'm Portland, Oregon, born and raised. So with me learning something about myself, about voter registration, I had never voted, and I had knew a lot of people that was in the same category of me.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this is John Kerry, President Bush. It's now time for me to get out in my community and get more of the people that is in my category, get them on board where I am at. So I was like, okay, give me the registration, and I'll get out and I'll stand on these corners. I'll stand where you guys just see me at. I'll go right here at the Fast Track. It's called Fast Trip. It's a little cigarette stand. A lot of people come right there. Let me go. Let me go in my own.
Smart.
Yeah, let me go on my own mission and I'll get it. I was coming back with like 30, 40, 50 voter registration cards every day.
Wow.
Yeah. So they ended up allowing me to be a trainer training the trainee, because I was so inspired, motivated, and just had the information that I needed to have to be able to get people registered to vote. To where they sent me to another organization called America I Can at that time on 20th and Sandy, to be able to train other people that were registering people to vote during that time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So I actually stayed with Oregon Action for 4 years. I went from voter registration. I was the campaign. I chaired the voter-owned election campaign, which is how Amanda Fritz got into office. And at that time, that was the campaign, the refinance reform. And so it was the opportunity for anyone to become city council, mayor, or run for office without having to contribute a large amount of money, where you would submit your, what is it called? You would submit your petition and a certain $5 until you get a certain amount of money into the, what is it called? To the matching funds, and then you would become qualified as a candidate. So I was the chair of that. I wrote my letter to the auditor, and then we went in front of the city council, and we testified. We had 2 people behind us that came and testified. We had over 2,000 cards from people in the community that actually agreed to this campaign. We had different council members who came down, and we testified to them to the office. And then after, it was like 3 years, that's when it passed. After that, we had the Project Clean Slate, which was in 2005, July of 2005, which was a historic day for the city of Portland. And that was where people are able to get their license back. And it was just we registered 1,500 people. They sent me down to Seattle to help with some stuff down there. I mean, I was on the roll. After I was able to see the type of person that I was, a different side of me, I was on the roll as far as my leadership in our community. And then that's when Joanne hooked me up after 2008. That's when Joanne hooked me up with Kevin O'Deal, who was the founder of Organizing People, Activating Leaders, because they were looking for a community organizer there at Organizing People, Activating Leaders.
Just
there.
5 years.
4 years, about 4 years after.
4 years after just getting started.
With Oregon Action.
No voting, to organizing and registering thousands of people to vote. That's That's like a big deal.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So not only now you've gotten these lots of other voters, but you aren't finished. You go back to PCC and you get your associate's degree in criminal justice, a degree that I didn't even know that PCC offered.
Yes.
While you're doing that, you're in student government there,
I'm
right?
a student. Yes, it doesn't stop.
I mean, you're just like, hey, I'm going to take every single opportunity and I'm going to go with it and roll with it. Okay, so what was your role there in student leadership?
So in PCC, I started at Southeast Campus on 82nd, and I had to transfer over to Cascade because the criminal justice program was not there. So I got there, and when I got into there, I heard about the student government at PCC, and I was like, I got to get involved because I had already been in working in community organizing in the community, so I had to keep that leadership capacity going. Sure. And when I heard about student government, I was like, I got to get involved. And when I heard that they had a director of legislative affairs, I said, I have to do this. So I got involved with that for a year at Southeast Campus, and then when I got over to Cascade Campus, I did the same position there. And when I was at the Southeast, when I got over at when I got to Cascade Campus, I was able to meet Michael Denbrough, who's still the state representative at the for our, he's a state representative. I was able to meet Barbara Lee. It was so many different state legislators that I was able to meet. I was able to take a lot of the students down to the state capitol lobby about student debt. At the time, Ted Willer, who is the mayor now, he was the state secretary. My job as the director of legislature was to get the students involved into the political process and help them and get them registered to vote. There was different organizations that we had to come in to talk about voter registration or about the information around voter registration. I even had an opportunity to meet with Partnership for Safety and Justice, who is working on issues around the criminal justice system. And so it was a phenomenal opportunity for me to be in that Director of Legislative Affairs position through ASPCC. I am alumni, so I am still connecting with PCC. I still connect with Kendi Isari, who was the student leadership coordinator for ASPCC. I still go back and connect with the Women Resource Center, the reentry program that's there now. I still work with them as far as working with the work that I do now as well. So it was a great opportunity, and I really enjoyed the work that I did.
When did you get your degree then?
That was in 2015.
And you're still connected. That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned working with women who are doing reentry, and this is your organization, Women First. Rebuild Women First. How did that get started?
So as I was working with Oregon Action, Women's First was established in 2007. Okay. I actually went to jail in 2007. I did 30 days in jail in Clark County, and when I went to jail, I was going through. I've been through a lot as a woman, as a kid growing up. Went through a lot of stuff, and I did 30 days in jail. And while I was in jail for 30 days, the Lord spoke to me. I believe in God. He's my Father. He's my everything, and He had spoke to me while I was in jail, and He gave me this vision for Women's First. And so when I was in jail, I had the whole 30 days that I was there. And I didn't speak to nobody while I was down there. I just had my focus on Him and the vision that He gave me. And so I just took that time, and there was, in Clark County, there was, in the industrial area in Clark County, it's a very clean county. So they have computers and they have all those type of things there. So I was zoned in to, when He said all the stuff that He told me, I would put it down on a piece of paper, and I would get to the computer and start typing everything up. And I was on a mission. Okay, you got to let me hurry up and put this stuff down on the piece so I would remember everything. And so when I got out, I tried to put everything together. I tried to put this whole vision together with that I had put in the 30 days. So I didn't have the people in place, like, you know, the same people that had the same focus that I had. And then what I didn't have is I hadn't built up enough network in the community that I have now. I hadn't established the relationships that I have now. I hadn't had the information and the knowledge that I have now, although I'm still learning things every day, you know, because it's a lot. But I didn't have what I know a lot that I have now. I didn't have that then. What I did is I had ran support groups for 6 months. And then I just put everything in the little box. And the box that I had back in 2007, I still have that box today.
Yeah.
With all of the rest of the stuff that I had, I still got that. The thumb drive that I started with in 2007, I still have that thumb drive today, you know. So it took 10 years for him to say, because I got involved in the recovery world and started working with Johnny Gage. I ran back into him. I did a peer mentorship training with him. I moved to North Portland. I started working there after I got finished school in 2015. I was working for, my background is nonprofit, so I've worked for many nonprofit organizations. I got a lot of background in that. But then I moved to North Portland, started working as a resident service coordinator at a low-income apartment complex. And when I was working there, about a year after working there, I was typing on the computer, and the Lord came to the office and said, "It's your time now for you to go forth." And I was like, "My time?" He said, "It's women's first. It's the time now." And I was like, "Okay." So
You're like, I'm busy typing.
yeah, and it was just as clear as day. And I was like, okay. So I got on the computer and I texted out to my Google listserv and I said, okay, anybody out there that know who can I speak to about nonprofit organization? I have an organization, and then people just hit me up. And then I started working with this guy, and Women's First has been operating for 2 years as of March of this year.
That's awesome.
As of March of this year.
So part of that is a support group that you do with women. How does that group work? So all of the women in the group are coming out of the prison cycle, or?
So basically what we do is we work with women that are transitioning from prison. We have a peer mentorship program that was launched in April. And what we do, the peer mentorship program, we have mentors, and I want to acknowledge one of our mentors right now is Anita Ward. She's my mother, and she's
Anita,
my mother. She's one of our peer mentors.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yes, and so what we do is we serve women 6 months prior to their release. And our mentorship is based out of Coffee Creek Correctional Facility. And we work with the women, serve the women 6 months prior to release. And what we do is we go and visit them. We were visiting them 2 times a month, but now they reduced that time to once a month. And we are visiting them once a month for 2 hours, and we there to build relationships. We're there to make connections, and we're there to develop that trust, because it takes a time for you to develop trust with someone that you don't know.
Right.
So we develop that trust with them, and then we work on different worksheets that builds the woman up prior to their release. Focus on values, it focus on criminality, behavior, it focus on goals, it focus on finances, it focus on community and family, and it focus on spirituality and healing. And then we also have them just about 2 months prior to their release, we help them to create an action plan that focus on the action items of employment, education, housing, family and individual counseling, legal, and spirituality, and then the individual themselves and what goals that they would like to see, so that we as the peer mentors then identify what programs, services, resources are available in the community. That way they have a sense of direction and what and are able to navigate back into society to become successful and productive citizens of our community. But then it also helps them to take ownership of their own lives, and then it holds them accountable for what they are accomplishing for themselves. And when they are released, they are able to speak to their POs, because most of them are assigned to PO, and they are able to take that action plan and say, hey, here's the action plan that I created for myself while in prison. Can you help support me to accomplish these goals? On the flip side of that, we also have I Love Me women empowerment groups. And those women empowerment groups, we launched those in November of 2017. And that curriculum focused on identity formation, value clarification. We promote healthy behaviors that increases academic, social, emotional, and spiritual growth. And we educate women to learn to love and value themselves. And and so we had 10 women last year that graduated from our women empowerment groups, and we meet with women once a week. We actually are just started our 4th group. We meet with women once a week for 2 hours, and it's a closed group, and we're always seeking 10 to 12 women to participate in those groups.
That's fantastic. What phenomenal work that you have. Does it feel like a privilege to get to do? I know that's an odd question, but
it is a privilege, because I feel that God could have chosen anyone else to do the work, but he chose me. Yeah. So I feel that I'm privileged to do his assignment and help other women, to help them to rebuild their lives to become successful and productive. Because I most definitely have my own struggles as a woman. And so now that he has helped me to become a better person for myself, that I'm able to reach out and help bring someone else up in this world and help them to become better for themselves and their families.
It's beautiful. Now, you had mentioned your mom, Nita's in the audience. Who else is in the audience?
So today I have my son, Davion.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yes, my son, Davion. And as I shared with you, so when I was 16 years old, my son was adopted. And at 6 months, he was adopted after 6 months and was adopted out of the state of Oregon. And he was adopted, and I couldn't find him. I was trying to find him and do what I could, and I couldn't. Yeah. And for years I tried to find him. They told me after he was adopted that his name was still the same. He lived in the state of Oregon, but that I couldn't see him. And so I tried to do everything that I could to find him, but I couldn't. And so I was just praying. I just always said, Lord, wherever he may be at, I just ask you just to keep your loving angels capped around and about him. Don't let no hurt, harm, or danger come near him. And whoever is taking care of my son, I ask you, Lord, just to allow that family to please take care of my child, and pray that he, is okay. And I just pray that one day that me and my child reunite one day. And so, and that was just my prayer, because it was like every time that all the things that I tried to do, I just was coming up against a brick wall. It just never worked out for me. And so I remember it was October the 21st of last year, just a week before my 40th birthday. I was born October the 28th, 1978. And I was at church, and I remember I was praying. It was a beautiful church service that day, and I was just praying and praying. I got over to a corner, and the Spirit spoke to me and said, eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard what I'm getting ready to do for you in your life. And I just started crying, and I just praying. I was thanking God. And so I was just in the Spirit for the rest of the day. And then I had got home that night, and I was just still in the Spirit, and I was feeling good. And I got home, and I got this letter on my bed, and I was looking at a letter, and it was like, it said Hutu, Spencer. And I was like, who is this? I said, well, maybe it's somebody that's trying to reach out to me from the organization. So I opened up the letter, and then when I started reading, and I just saw the line that said, I'm just trying to find my biological mother, and I just fell on the ground, and I started crying and laughing at the same time. And my mom, she just ran in there, and she was like, Shannon, are you okay? What is going on? What is up? I was like, Mom, it's Davion. He's found us. I'm so happy. And she was like, what? I was like, it's Davion, because I named him Davion. So she was like, oh my God. And she just fell on the ground on her knees, and she just got in a silent mode and just listened to me, just rejoicing. And I was just like, and so then I went on his Facebook page. I called my cousin. She was like, search his name. And I just went on there and searched his name, and I was just like, oh my gosh, look at my son. He is so handsome. I was like, look at my son. He's so handsome. I was just so, oh my gosh, look at this guy. So I friended him, and I was like, hey, here I am. Inbox again. And so then he texted me. He was just like, yeah. And then when I talked to him for the first time, he just was like, hi, Mom. And I was like, hi, son. And it felt so good. The way it felt is like he had been going out of town for a long time. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like he, he didn't make me feel like I'm mad at you. What did you do? What did you do? It wasn't like that. It just felt just like we're back together again,
Now, you were back together this whole time. He was in Troutdale?
Yes.
Just right down the road.
Down the road. And then when we got together, when I got to see him, we had dinner at Red Robin's. And when he walked across the street, I just saw his smile. It just lit up from across the street. Teeth was just as white. And he walked across the street, and I was just like, look at my son, my firstborn child, And I was just like, a week before my 40th birthday, that's the best gift a mother could have. I just like, Lord.
Well, you know what I just realized a couple of minutes ago while you're talking, and I just about choked up and I didn't say anything about it? This is your first Mother's Day.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So.
I love you too.
So how can people now? Before we want to talk about your fundraiser for Women First. You're working on a fundraiser to buy a house to help women who are transitioning out of correctional system, because that's one of the huge gaps that exist, right? So how is that project going?
So that project is going. It's going good. So this April. We started a kickoff. So let me back up a little bit. So before we realized, before we started our fundraiser, we've had so far 7 women that we are serving that's recently has been released from prison. And out of those 7 women, there are 5 women that are actively rolling, that are working jobs. One is getting ready to go back to school. One is getting ready to reunite with her child. And we're looking to get one is in a place. One is actually getting ready to get into a place. One just got into a place. One is out of transition, working and getting out of transitional housing. So the housing piece is a crisis.
Don't forget we have an intern that is getting ready to be a peer mentor too.
Yeah, intern is getting ready to one is getting ready to be a peer mentor, working to become a peer mentor through an internship. So right now, housing is a crisis for a lot of a majority of the women that's coming out of transitional housing or in treatment. And so we've discovered through conversations that we've been having, at the table, through the women that we're working with, through county employees, program managers, that a lot of the people work with these women short term, because transitional housing and treatment is 3 to 6 months. After that, basically, they're on their own.
Right.
to find housing. And what happens is that it's the fear these women have shared with us. It's the fear of the fair marketplace, which is high. You have, if they find second chance landlords who are willing to give them a place to stay, they may have a job, but due to their background, the move-in costs and security deposits are extremely high.
Right.
Or you have family members that they used to live with. They cannot go back to living with them because they burned their bridges because of the addiction or because of the in and out of prison and all the lifestyles of that. They
Right.
don't want to deal with them no more.
Nowhere
or
else to go.
they don't want to go back to live with family or be around family because they're still subjected to that lifestyle of gang violence, drugs, all that type of stuff.
Right.
Or it's the Section 8 HUD housing is 2 to 4 years out, and that's a long time for a person to have to wait for housing. So it's
and
like
housing isn't necessarily all that great. It
It's
can be
not.
just unsafe, and so
it's not. So there's a lot of barriers that these women are facing. So we as an organization, we want to bridge the gap and get a house so that we can provide a clean and sober long-term continuum care so that they can be able to have a space that they can come to until they're able to get permanent housing. Can we save them all? No, we can't. But we want to be able to help the ones that we can help.
right.
And so we launched our fundraiser April of this year. And we had our sponsor organization, which was Nasty Women Get Shit Done, Allie King. They sponsored us with a $5,000. And then we went on to our Facebook page and reached out to community members and was able to raise $2,500 from our community members. And then Nasty Women Get Shit Done matched us with another $2,500.
Wow.
So our goal for this year is our goal is to reach $150,000 for 2019. So for 2020, we can get into that house.
Right.
So we are seeking anyone. It's weird. We are not. No one is not left out. Discriminations, no.
You'll take money from anyone.
Anyone can go onto our website at www.rebuildwomensfirst.org. Actually, I bought flyers today to give to everyone. You can help spread the word. We're also looking for anyone who's interested in joining our organization to even host a party. For us to spread it out to your networks, we'll come to you and get the information out to you to host a party at your place, or we'll get a space and you can come there to you with your networks, and you can be able to host a party to share the information about our organization so that we can be able to reach our goal for this year to get the house. We're also writing a grant for the city, through the city of Portland, and its deadline is the 24th, because we were recommended already for the fact that we're doing this grant for this house to become housing navigators. And what that looks like is basically we would then reach out to all the housing agencies and the providers to work with them to help the women that are coming out of these treatment centers and these transitional housing, and work with the different treatment centers and the transitional housing to then help the women to navigate to find the places. In addition, we're getting our own house, but then we will hire navigators to help those women 2 months prior to them coming out of these places, so they'll have a plan in place. Because a lot of times,
Well, and then between both of those things, you're going to be able to catch the gaps on one side or the other where you can. That's so smart to do, because it's hard to be able to catch everyone. Everyone's
That's
got
right.
their very unique situations. That's not
right.
going to translate to everyone.
yep,
So we can follow you at rebuildwomenfirst.com.
.org.
.org. Okay, fantastic. Where else can we follow you?
You can follow us. You can go on our Facebook at Women's First Transition, and Referral Center. And like I said, I have flyers to pass out. I came prepared. So if you don't remember the information, I can give you the flyer with all the information on there.
Oh, you can always go to myrealportland.com and search on the guest page, and you'll find all the information about Shannon Olive and all of the other guests. So fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So Shannon, this is the third My Real Portland questionnaire of the evening, and you're a Portland native, so this is going to be really fun. What's your favorite smell in Portland?
My favorite smell is, you know, the Fran's Bakery.
That's mine too.
Yes, that smell good bread. It smells so
I will
good.
stand outside that
Yes,
window for
I love
hours. They
passing
think
by
I'm
there.
nuts, but my God.
I love it.
What's your favorite sound in Portland?
My favorite sound is, oh gosh. My favorite sound is, you know, I just love hearing the cars. You know, on the freeway. Yeah, I just love, just like,
That's like the most unusual answer
I
that I think
do.
you'd expect.
I like the cars. I don't know what it is, but I like the cars on the freeway when they're going and it's going zoom, zoom, zoom. You know, and you hear the different dun, dun. I just like that sound. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I just do. I really do. And the good thing, the crazy thing is like, have you ever seen the cars at night when they have it going real fast and it's that light and it just it's like on the postcard or something where it's that flashing is going real fast and it's just like it's like blur thing. Yeah. I love that look. I don't know what it is, but so I like the sound of the cars. You can get a cheap house right off the. Like I could hear that sound as it's zoom, zoom, it's just different. I love it.
So you're about the same age as me. I have to ask you this question since you say that you like cars that make all sorts of different sounds.
I do.
Okay, but do you
Even
like
trucks?
Do you like the cars that go boom?
No, the boom.
There's a couple of people who know. No, there was a song from.
Oh, you like the cars? The cars that go boom with Tisha and Bonnie, and I like the boom.
Okay. What's your favorite bridge in Portland?
Oh goodness! So is it the bridge? The bridge is the bridge. Is it? Okay, I think it is the bridge. The new bridge with the lights, huh?
The Tillicum.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that bridge.
Yeah.
I love
the
it.
bridge of the people.
Yes.
What famous Portlandian would you most like to meet? Now you've met them all.
Who?
What famous Portlandian would you most like to meet?
Portlandian would I like to meet? You know, oh. I'm trying to
Not
think.
meet that way.
I know, but yeah.
You've met all the famous Portlandians that you want to meet. There you go.
Yeah, and you know what, and that's great, but I'm trying to think. I wouldn't even, I never thought about that. That's never been something.
Because you're always meeting everybody you said you go to meet.
That's right.
And you know, and you're right, but it's somebody, and I would have to, what I'm gonna do, Joseph, is I'm gonna have to think about that, and I'm gonna call you back, and you can put me on podcast and be like, here's their answer for that.
I love it because there is an answer, but that is a hard one to come up with. Okay. So where are we most likely to find you for weekend breakfast? 3 a.m. at the Hot Cake House, 6 a.m. at Stumptown Coffee, 10 a.m. right here for brunch at the Slide In, or somewhere for a Bloody Mary.
Well, you know what? I was sitting here, if you was asking everybody that question, I was sitting here and I was thinking, and I'm going to tell you where I would like to be at for brunch. At my brother's house, Bobby Olive.
Oh, there you go.
Right there, my brother, he gets down. He is a cook for your butt, okay? When he cooks, he'll have you sitting there stuck. Can't go nowhere. You fall asleep. And it's just, I mean, for real, he cooks it down, so I'll be at his house for brunch.
Okay, so that
I'm
question
telling
is
you.
really about me getting ideas for breakfast.
Well, I
so
mean,
there we go.
yeah.
Next weekend, I'm coming over to your
So-
place. If you could rename any Portland street, which street and for who?
Well, you know what? Everybody's saying that Harvey Milk, because I really, you know what? I just didn't understand Harvey Milk, where they got that from. Who is that person? And I would most definitely change that to Olive. You know, my dad, to Olive Street. My dad was the first man in Oregon who donated his heart in 1985.
Wow,
And so I most definitely would change that to Olive Street.
that's beautiful. I
Yes.
didn't know that.
Yes.
I-
He donated his heart to a white man.
That's a useful fact.
Yes.
That's exactly.
First successful organ heart donor. In 1985, he donated his heart at OHSU, and he donated his heart to a white man named Wesley Merrill, and the man lived on his heart for 5 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
If you were a tree, which Portland park would you like to be planted in?
I would be planted in Peninsula. You know, Peninsula, I lived across the street from Peninsula, and I used to go to that park every single day.
Uh-huh.
I got married in that park at 6 years old. And me and my cousins used to go to that park every day and eat lunch, and we used to get on that merry-go-round, and that was our in the Rose Garden. So I would most definitely get planted in that park.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank
Please
you.
give it up for Shannon Olive. Okay, so 2 quick ads, and then we will get on with Amanda. So My Real Portland is brought to you by me, Joseph Lyons, realtor in the streets, podcaster in the sheets. I help home buyers and sellers across the Portland metro area make their real dreams become real estate. Learn more about me at josephlyons.com. Now, My Real Portland is also brought to you by advertising sponsors, and this entire season is sponsored by Cooper Realty. Cooper Realty is Ernest Cooper and his Northwest Portland boutique agency. They represent homeowners and home buyers all across the Portland metro area, from a duplex at 39th and Holgate to a single-level ranch in Rock Creek and a historic Oregon City Victorian mansion. Cooper Realty's one-on-one approach to real estate has closed 555 transactions over the past 18 years. Contact Ernest Cooper at 503-515-8426 or visit www.cooperrealty.net to learn more. Okay. How you doing, Amanda?
Good, how are you?
You almost set? I'm going to skip the game show. Yeah.
Skipping the game show.
Okay. So, my final guest is a 6-time Grammy nominee who performs with her band, The Good Long Whiles. In true My Real Portland fashion, I learned about her through another My Real Portland guest, my friend Charmian. My first experience of this dynamo was costumes that she made for my friend Charmian's theater company, The Reformers. She is a creative inspiration. Please welcome to the My Real Portland stage, Amanda Richards.
All right, is this thing on? Hello. So I was gonna do some comedy stuff, but that I feel like we really need to ease into that after Shannon's wonderful story. I mean, I'm over here crying, hearing your beautiful story about meeting your son again. I'll just do a song that's kind of more in vein with like the women's work and stuff that you're doing. So this is the true story of Cinderella, where you actually have to take care of yourself, and Prince Charming doesn't really show up. So. Sat on the stoop for an hour or so, but my prince never came, nor did he call. And I wish that I could go home. These days have been warm and lazy, but it's back to pumping gas and pushing broom. 'Cause no one but myself can save me. Have the walls of society come crashing down? Oh, there's creditors calling, no work to be found, but there's a roof overhead, plenty to eat, sleeping under the stars, begging in the street. Once upon a time never happened. There's only the here and the now. And happily ever after is just a curtain call and a bow. And I wish that I could go home to a place like my mama gave me. But I'm out in the world on my own, with no one but myself to save me. Have the walls of society come crashing down? And there's creditors calling, no work to be found. There's a roof overhead, plenty to eat, sleeping under the stars, begging in the street. Have the walls of society come crashing down? There's creditors calling, no work to be found, but there's a roof overhead, plenty to eat, sleeping under the stars, begging in the street. I borrowed the dress from my cousin, did my hair and face for the ball. Sat on the stoop for an hour or so, but my prince never came, nor did he call.
Thank you, Amanda. Oh my gosh, I have the best job. So, Amanda, welcome to My Real Portland.
Thank you.
You grew up in a musical family. What did you learn growing up in a musical family that stayed with you? Like I don't know what that must feel like.
Well, I moved here when I was 7, so I didn't really live in my musical family. I got the genes and then was kind of off on my own, you know. So I got my first guitar when I was 12. I kind of asked some people if they'd teach me, and they were like, "Figure it out on your own, kid."
Oh, wow.
But, you know, I mean, more or less I'd pick up things here and there. But I think what I really learned was, you know, just seeing how talented people were in my family. Some of them got successful, some of them not so much. And I think that watching them, I learned that talent will take you far, but hard work and luck will take you a lot farther. And also that really gratitude is everything, you know.
Gratitude. So in terms of your performances, is it something that you bring to to each performance? Is it something how you organize the music that you write?
I think that, I've been doing this for a really long time, and earlier on in my career, I think I had a lot more like ego invested into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after a few years, I was kind of able to get out of my own way and really see, there's that saying, it's not like, what you know, it's who you know. But what they mean by that is it's like, it's your community that's going to lift you up. And, what you can, and
That's
it's
right.
not really about them helping you. It's like, what can you do to bring community together, and how can you serve? And that happens through gratitude, like being like for me right now, like being grateful for being here this evening, to have an opportunity to share my songs with you, like that, and having a wonderful exchange with this audience. So for me, like I feel grateful to be here. So.
Well, and what a perfect in theme with Jasmine and Shannon and Belinda all putting together fantastic things. So speaking of moms, by the way, today, my mom did a lot of creative art. She was doing colored pencil and watercolor knitting and all that different kind of stuff. And she would get bored with that medium and switch it up and do different things. And you kind of are the same way. So you've gone from music to you're a playwright, and you're actually also doing costumes, and you're doing a ton of different things. How is there anything that you don't want to do? First of all,
well, I'm not good at running, so. But I mean, when it comes to creative expression, I don't like to hold myself back, really. So if there's an opportunity for something, or if I get a vision in my head, I am almost compelled to do it, not necessarily because I want to do it, but because I'll make myself miserable until I complete that. So it's kind of like this drive to see things become reality,
Speaking of seeing things become reality, you have some merch out, actually. Albums from how many years of recording? Okay,
so I only brought 5 albums, but I have 8 albums. I recorded my first full-length album in 2004, and I sold out of that one a few years ago, but that was called Not Always Sexy. You might be able to get it online somewhere, but I don't even have a copy of it. So.
Tell us about The Good Long Whiles.
So my band, The Good Long Whiles, I've been playing with my primary member, Steve Moore, for about 7 years, and he and I have been good friends for about 12. And I just had this idea of this band that, we're just old Americana, like sitting on the front porch and like taking things really slow, and that sometimes it takes a long time for your perfect band to come together. So this one has taken a while to, really... I might have cursed myself with that name, actually. But I'm sticking to it because I'm really stubborn.
There you go. I love it. What other projects are you working on, by the way?
So I'm working on an adaptation of my play that's going to be made into a movie in September. Wow. So that's kind of taking up a lot of my time.
Your play is becoming a movie.
Yes.
What a fantastic thing. Now, you had actually wanted to, like my childhood dream, start your own theater, right?
That was originally the plan, but it's not a very viable plan here. And I can tell you
difficult,
all the
right?
reasons why.
But so what a different journey to be able to take this thing that you've put your whole creative work in and to take it to a new medium, right?
Well, it was kind of born out of necessity because trying to remount the show in another venue, there's a shortage of performance spaces in Portland right now. A lot of things are being shut down because of seismic upgrading, and there's a lot of displaced theater companies. And so, you're looking at a 2-year wait list to put a show up. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll just long-term lease a space. And getting into that, my operating costs were like, looking at over $20,000 a month, not including production costs and things like that.
Okay, that's the end of the audio. But good news. Amanda Richards has a new movie that she's working on right now based on her play called Whiskey Dixie and the Big Wet Country. It was a play that played at Portland's Imago Theater for about 5 weeks, and she'll be taking on the title role of Whiskey Williams, an aspiring country singer who finds her first glimpses of notoriety through a viral video involving a vibrator and several traffic violations. So here is a song from Amanda Richards and the Good Long While.
Once upon a time, never happened. There's only the here and the now. Happily ever after is just a curtain call and goodbye. Dress from my cousin, and I did my hair and face for the morrow. Sat on the stoop for an hour or so, but my prince never came.